Before we get started tonight, I want to thank everybody for coming out. It looks like we're going to have a few people here for this first urban renewal on the traffic safety issues. So we thank everybody for coming. And that said, we're going to move right into the urban renewal meeting. So I will now open the urban renewal. And the first thing I have is roll call.
Director Dunsmuir.
Present.
Director Hughes.
Here.
Director Lidkey.
Here.
Director McElroy.
Here.
Director Strobel.
Here.
Director Tenbush.
Here.
Chair Drinkline.
Here. Thank you very much, Sadie. Now, before we get started on the citizen and community group comment, the first section is going to be for traffic safety to put forward their study that they did. So that'll be dedicated to you. The second citizen and community group comment, I will address all the speaker forms that I have in front of me here. So just so you know, I haven't forgotten you and you're going to be up. So traffic safety group, who's speaking on behalf of the traffic safety?
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Jim Moriarty. I'm the chair of the Traffic and Public Safety Committee here in Estacada. I'm here with my vice chair, Brandy Lidkey, Carrie Dobbs, and Katie Berezinski. And what we did on Saturday was we had a successful day planning out the proposed Main Street beautification with cones, yellow tape, chalk, and A-frames in order to bring the two proposed drawings that you guys all have to life. We had signs out notifying citizens to show up to the meeting this evening. Had some great discussions with Estacada residents, some truck drivers, some longtime residents, and even one of the TriMet drivers, not only asking what we were doing, but showing a great interest in the Main Street beautification project. Before I get into all this, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Dobbs, since he was instrumental in leading the project and setting everything up here. And we don't necessarily have, I don't want to say recommendations, but we just want to show you what we learned. I sent some information to the city manager, some photographs and some videos, so we can go through that also. And okay, turn it over to Carrie.
I'm Kerry Dobbs, resident of Estacada. Well, our plan was to try to duplicate as much as possible to the dimensions on the layout on the drawings. I believe we did a good job of that. We put cones at the circles, the turnarounds, so the traffic could move. If they move over it, they run over them. We put the cones back. We marked the ground, all the pavement and everything with chalk. People's curiosity was super high. What's going on? And our definition was we're implementing something that would be coming, and it would be good if you had a response. So upon doing all this, we find that there's some hot spots that we would like to address, not tonight, but in the safety meeting, of including pedestrians and supply trucks and vehicles. And the number one cherry on top would be the fire department. And for them to maneuver through what we set up off of the drawings, it's rather difficult. And I think attention will be shown to that so that we can deal with these things. And the width of the road, the idea on Main Street beautification, that's a statement. I'm not sure where beautification applies in this. If it's the greenery, that's good. This is just my shot at it. Trees are awesome. Lighting is wonderful. But when it impedes the flow of horse trailers, dump trucks, we're a rural town, the average vehicle of a four-wheel drive is about 21 feet, 21 to 23 feet. You add another 30 feet of a trailer, of anything that's hauling anything of substance. Now we've got a long piece of equipment that can't make radius turns down to 14 feet and 14 feet. So the dimensions of this thing, I feel by the study, which you'll see, are a little bit off. And so the point is to review this for this community. Broadway is a more of a laid back street over here. Main Street is an artery that runs to the top of the hill. To choke that off would not be good. Harvest Market has deliveries during the day. The folks back up there for produce. That impedes the intersection on Third. There's a timing thing there where if someone had pulled out or would pull out, they would not know if that truck was coming out or not. We have safety recommendations for that corner that we can review down the road. I think it was a success. The teamwork was incredible. Everybody just busted buns and put it together. And now I think what we need to do is look at the results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Carol.
And Brandy Licky, you're going to speak on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Brandy Lidkey. I was there and I'm vice chair of this new committee that you guys had put together, which I think was an amazing idea because we're already seeing reasons for it. Basically, the important thing we brought back from this was to maybe let our committee work alongside the engineer, and we could give formal recommendations once we have a meeting. We haven't had a chance to do that yet because this just happened. But there's a lot of things here that we could suggest maybe finessing a bit, changing a bit. Lots of comments on, I encourage you guys to check out social media because there was a video posted of the fire truck where it was turning and a guy had to back up. There's tons of comments on there. And I'm sure some of the people are here. But I think the community has a lot to say, and taking their thoughts into this project would be really good. And we're grateful that you guys created this committee. We're excited to keep working hard for you. And thank you.
Okay, and we do have the photos. Those were what was playing. Did you want to talk? Can we?
Yeah, could you briefly?
Okay, yes.
Appreciate
We
that.
can share that screen. And if we could just do just a couple more minutes, that would be great.
Yep. Okay, this is one example here at Fourth and Main, turning in left in front of Chapman's. Going up, you can see how far the proposed bump outs would be from the sidewalk. How far out we go here. And it's taking up all this, and the small Kia has to turn real wide and then head up Fourth. Go ahead with the next one, please. That's okay.
Hey, Jim, if you walk away from that mic, they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this is the same picture here, but a better idea of where we marked off 14 feet. You can see the purple here and the green here. You can see where that comes. And when someone's coming from Reagan Hill area right here, they're not up here where they should be. They're getting into the middle of the lane. And you're gonna have the other car coming this way. We'll see in the video. Go ahead. All right, excellent. This shot was for the fire department. Seeing how far the bump out would be, you can see 224 here, and is when they exit their building and then have to make a right-hand turn onto Main Street. I didn't send that to you, Melanie, but he was pretty close to the main line there, going down the middle of the street. And this is a picture right here at Chevron. You can see all the cones and all the markings. Excuse me, here at 20 feet. And this is proposed 10 feet over here. And the sidewalk over here is going to be 8 feet. And go ahead. All right, this is coming from Broadway on Fourth, taking a left onto Main there. Smaller vehicle, but you can see how they're coming out, having to. It was good. Everyone was going slow, except for a few people with their V8s showing off, but it was pretty good. Okay, here's F-250 headed up. The same intersection, as you can see. There's not a lot of room here between the pump out and this front right tire. The other one here. So So there's not a lot of room for a large truck there to get up there. And here's two vehicles. Elon Musk mobile here and worker. So as you can see, and then this one right here, which we saw, I've only been here in Estacada 6 years. And I have never seen so many horse trails on Main Street in 30 minutes. It was awesome. But this was a common sight that we saw here, turning right there. And I have another one. I know he's going up that way, but I couldn't remember. Here we go. That he came all the way up like he was stopping. And then because he had to wait for the other two vehicles to come out of 4th and Main there in order to negotiate going up the hill. And TriMet bus spoke to this gentleman. He talked to me about the concrete pad that we have out here. And I don't know if that's going to be something that's going to be moved or is it going to stay in the same location? Go ahead, the next one. Okay, this is where we marked everything out here on the proposal A and B. And then this was the 17-foot line down here where the angled parking was for option A. So you can see the difference between the 17 and 20. It's a little bit of difference there. Okay, there's horse trailers all day long. Okay, there's John, another member of the committee there. But you see, that's okay. And you can see the difference in where we have now. Even myself, I'm doing big business right here going home. And it's going to be out this far. And this is this way. Yeah, it's a smaller room to negotiate there. And then pretty common F-350. And that's on both sides of 4th and Main here. And in the proposal, the circle is here. It comes around like this with no defined sidewalks. Okay. And this is down at 3rd and Main. This is what Carrie was talking about. We had something set up over here. And over here, we have the Main. They physically got out. They had to see the phones just in order to get back there. And this was, I believe, a bump out on this side here. And there was no DW listed here. And this bump out comes up pretty close to. Go ahead. That's the same, just on the 300 Main side, the Ace Hardware side. And this, reason why I parked in front of you, my large Ram truck, is because when I come up from Broadway and 4th, I have to pull out to about here. If there's a vehicle that's parked in front of the trees, it's difficult to look down to the highway there. So I didn't get the right shot there, but he pulled out and he had to pull out past the crosswalk there in order to go that way. This gentleman took a few of our equipment and drug one of the cones all the way to the top of Main, all the way to the top of the hill. So yeah, that was quite a turn there. It's me standing where the island's going to disappear there in the middle by 1900 and Ace Hardware there. And that's some of the bump outs there.
Maybe we should skip ahead to the videos.
Go
We
ahead
can
and yeah, I
roll
can do
those,
the videos.
yeah,
Absolutely.
just kinda roll
That's
through
good.
those. See if we get to those videos.
Sure. And Mr. Dobbs.
I do appreciate the whole
had put
committee
that in there.
working hard on that. It was
And
playing
Katie.
earlier. There we go. Let's try this.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see the video.
I also don't know how you guys arrange the weather. That was pretty good timing on that.
Brings a lot.
Here's the other video too.
This is the one where there's the issue, like we've seen in the other photographs. Taking a right here, you'll see the silver SUV come up and say, oh my goodness, and back up quickly. Because he's on that side of the traffic side.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, we were there from 7:30 to 1:30 in the afternoon. And that's what we have for you guys.
That's great.
So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
We
Thank
thank you,
you.
Jim, for that. I
Thank
think,
you, Melanie, for all that.
Yeah, thank
Jerry
you.
had a question for you. before
Yes.
you-
So just to wrap my brain around it, I really appreciate what you did.
Thank
That's
you.
really good information and stuff that these pictures don't show us. But when you guys did all your measurements and stuff, did you measure from the center line of the street? Or did you measure from the sidewalk out?
We measured the 20 feet from the middle
Okay,
to the sidewalk.
Perfect.
And that was because Carrie.
Yeah.
I'm deferring to all technical questions to him.
yeah, perfect. Perfect, thank you.
Jim, one
Thank
more
you.
over here, Joel.
So I had the pleasure of being down there to see a lot of this worked out throughout there. I know Paul was down there for a while himself. And so one of the things that you were mentioning that I didn't see your video didn't show, I wanted to point out was that when the fire truck was pulling off of Third onto Broadway, they actually had to stop, back up,
Right.
and then continue to turn before they could even make the turn. So I had the video of that, but I just didn't see it on there, so.
But I
Wanted to
mean,
make
it was great and I appreciated their help doing that because, I mean, we had one 18-wheeler show up right when we were breaking down Dollar General. And he came all the way down here and took a left at Yo Treats and we were just like, go right ahead. Because it was, it was huge. Huge. So, but thank you for being down there. People that attended.
And I don't see any other questions. Thank you, Jim, very
Okay.
much. We
Thank you, Matt.
appreciate that presentation.
Appreciate it.
Okay. I want to thank all of you for that. That really puts it into a perspective that I think we all can understand. I'll give you a chance to speak here in a minute. Did you put one of these in?
I'm just wondering if the council would be, are we allowed to ask any questions about some of the comments?
You can, but you would have to put in a speaker request form, and I have them right there on that desk, and hand them to Sadie, and she'll get them to
Can I
you.
bring it up? Do regard study, probably utility down. Pretty well answer all the questions that a lot of these people are here for.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, but we have a procedure. We have to go through it. No matter what we do here, we have to go through it. Well, it's all open for debate because it's not being done yet. We're just gonna go over some issues with it and it's coming back. This is not the first time you're gonna see this. So we're gonna come back a few times.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that we do the consent agenda for the minutes and then we'll turn it over to Kurt and let him walk you through the questions he had. That might answer some of your questions too, but we want to try to leave some time for that second public comment time at the end. If we run a little long, so be it. But we do have the next meeting starting at 7, so we'll try to keep it moving forward. But I appreciate everybody being here tonight.
All right. So now moving ahead, we're gonna go with the consent agenda. You've all had a chance to read the consent agenda. Can I get a motion on the floor for the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
First and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda passes. Thank you very much. Agency business, Main Street Enhancement Design Update. And you're on.
First of all, our purpose for this is the first meeting to talk about design components. We had a very brief overview, I think, at the last council meeting that I was attended. But what we want to do is just hear all this and put it together and then come back with concepts as to how we can make it work. So we don't have any preconceived ideas. Although let me back up, we do have a preconceived idea because we're trying to match Broadway. Our initial concept was let's match Broadway. So that's why a lot of the concepts are the same as Broadway. So we used a lot of the same dimensions as Broadway. So Broadway is a good example for how to drive and see what's restrictive, taking the fire trucks that are around. We certainly are aware of the restrictions and we see this in a lot of communities. When we do bump outs, the first concern is it restricts traffic too much. So we've seen other cities do the same thing, put the cones out. And in fact, we've seen them do extruded curb to see how that works for the community, to see if they like it. Canby did that for a while. But our interests are just in understanding the concerns. We are familiar with most everything you guys have said. So we're familiar with the limitations that it creates to put bump outs. And we're familiar with the turning radiuses. And I'm working with Sarah Poet, the fire department, on what does she think she needs to make this work for her. One thing about emergency vehicles, you know, it's different when an emergency truck is headed to an event. So when the lights and siren are working, people get out of their way. And so a fire truck, for example, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but a fire truck needs that 28-foot inside radius, but they need about a 41 or 42 outside radius. So that's the whole road. I mean, there's no way to provide the turn lane that would keep the fire truck in its lane, no matter what you do. The fire trucks are like 36 plus feet long. And by the time they turn to keep their back wheel from going over the curb, the front wheels are out 41 foot. So we have a 28-foot, we had a 28-foot street and a 28-foot curb return. So we're talking about 28. What's the difference between 28 and 41? That's 13 feet. 13 is all. So 41 feet is where the nose of that truck goes around and 28 is where it's tight. So bottom line is we'll work with Sarah to make sure that works. Now, one thing we did on Broadway in that regard was that all the curb returns are flush. So you know where the curb is because we've got a curb built there. You've got sideways there, but all the curbs are flush through the whole curb return. So if a fire truck cuts the corner, they can drive right over that curb and sidewalk on the corner. We may want to pull the bollards and the chain back, but we can find out what their experience has been on Broadway Street. But pulling the bollards and the chain back so the fire department could cut the corner by 3 feet or something is very feasible to do also. Bottom line is we're open to all these options. We're made notes of your concerns. We've gone through your report and kind of had some notes on each one. So it might be better if when we're done, a little presentation that you can maybe ask me specifically on which ones are particular concern. I tell you what we're thinking, but we're still at the thinking stage. So one of the things we wanted to do tonight was get the preliminary feedback on what we want for this street. And it's hard. We're already seeing the pushback. We're seeing it from both sides. You know, some people want reduced bump out or increase the bump out so it increases the safety for pedestrians crossing the street. That's the trade-off. It's tougher for traffic. Traffic slows down. That's a benefit. So we got traffic calming with a bump out. And we've reduced the amount of time of pedestrians in the street. So those are the positive things. The negative things is when you're taking a big truck through a 350 with a trailer, he's going to have to plan ahead to do that. So he may not even be able to use Main Street. He may need to take a different route to get where he needs to go. So, so the things we wanted to talk about just real quick, I'll try to walk down the list, but you have this list I presented to you. These are just the design questions, discussion points. So just walking down, let me tell you just a quick overview. C-curb, there's a difference between C-curb and gutter. And curb and gutter is designed when the water flow is flowing back against the curb. In our case, we're pushing all the water away from the curb. So we're proposing to use C-curb. That 2-foot concrete strip, there were some questions as to what that was, but that's a valley gutter. So what we're doing, that's where all the water will slope from the curb out to that gutter. And from the center line of the street, it'll flow into that gutter. And then that's a concrete gutter so that we can catch the water, take it down to catch basins. Some of the sidewalk options, we talked about stamped concrete. Broadway has a little bit of stamped concrete, so it's meant to simulate a minor boardwalk. So you think about whether we want to do that, it's maybe 3 times the cost of normal sidewalk. And then all the driveways, well, the curb and sidewalk are really impacted by driveways. And we want to talk, especially at the 76 station, we want to talk about a small driveway has got to try up against 4th Street. But all the driveways are the biggest hindrance for parking. So if there's any driveway that can be modified or eliminated, Ace Hardware, for example, has 2 driveways onto Main Street, plus they've got their driveways onto 3rd, I think they have onto 3rd. So if we could eliminate one of the driveways onto Main Street, it would allow us to have a much longer block of parking. Parking spaces, we had 2 options we provided on that sketch we provided to you. Our first directive was to provide diagonal parking. So option A is diagonal parking. And you can see in more particular, if the Ace Hardware, if we could eliminate the southern driveway to Ace Hardware, we could get a nice block of diagonal parking on the east side of Main Street from between 3rd and 4th. So that would add maybe how many spaces? 4 or 5 spaces perhaps. It does, when we do angled parking, it reduces the street width. So with the preliminary design that we've shown where we have angled parking on the west side and parallel parking on the east side, we can meet the standards for a major collector. So a major collector requires an 18-foot lane. So that's 6 feet for a bike lane, 12 feet for a travel lane. And when you look at my dimensions there, they say 17 feet, but there's a 2-foot concrete. And really the dividing line between parking and travel lane is the middle of that valley gutter. So you've got a 17-foot travel lane plus 1. You've got 18 feet there. And then in the southern block, you've got 20 feet plus 1. So you got 21 feet on the southern block. So our goal per the transportation plan is to provide a 12-foot travel lane and a 6-foot bike lane. And we'll talk about whether we want that separated. I think striping it would be confusing, but I think a Sharrow painted in the street, a legend, that shows it's a joint use bike and travel lane would work well. Excuse me. So with option A, we've had to reduce the widths of the lanes. They're 2 17-foot lanes plus that 1 foot from each side from the concrete. So 2 18-foot lanes. Yeah, that gives us the 12-foot travel lane, the 6-foot bike lane. In the second block, on the southern block, we've got 20 foot plus the 1 foot. So we've got 21-foot lane. So that's a large lane. So we've got the 12 that's required plus the 6 for a bike. We've got 18. We've got 3 feet to spare for the 18-foot minimum.
Can I just point out that the lanes on Broadway are about just under 12 feet versus 17 or 20. So that's a different,
Yeah.
it's a different feel there.
Yeah, they're actually 13, I believe, plus 1. So they're 14.
14.
Whereas here we're providing 17 plus 1 in that first block. Now, if we go with parallel parking or with angled parking on both sides, we would have to reduce that down to, what was the number? It's slightly less than what we can provide to meet the code. So it'd be exactly like Broadway. Yeah. And Broadway does not meet the TSP, the Transportation System Plan requirement for a major collector. So, but that if we were to do angled parking on both sides, it would be identical to Broadway. On the parking spaces, where there's a discussion about whether we want to use just pave it or do we want to use pavers, and recognize the pavers cost about 4 times the cost of asphalt. So that may be something that we consider when we get down to a cost estimate and feel like we're pinched on budget. Right now, I think we have plenty of budget. We have a good contingency on the project. So I think we can afford to do brick pavers easily. Intersection treatments, curb extensions. That's been the biggest thing I think you're aware of and concerned about. And we are too. It takes people getting used to. I don't know what the feedback is about Broadway. Broadway has exactly the same thing. We have a 14-foot travel lanes and 28-foot. So do people get used to them or do they hate it? Yeah. 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 Okay. So that's a traffic calming. And then we have to eliminate all of them. No. Oh, yeah, no, and recognize I don't have any bias one way or the other. So I'm happy to hear it from you.
Let's let him finish.
No,
Let him
I'm
finish.
here. I'm here to
We'll
listen to what you
speak
have to
on
say.
this.
So,
We're gonna give you time.
yeah, we'll recognize the Broadway. Sorry to be communicating directly to your group,
Yeah.
but the Broadway concept was the result of several meetings just like this. So meeting with. So the other,
You guys, come on, let's let them finish up and then we all have a chance to talk. I know.
Excuse me, we're going to have time for public comment at the end, but we really need to get through because the board will have to. Well, we'd like
It's not
to,
gonna be like that.
Just
And
give
that's
us a
not
chance
fair.
to get to it, guys, okay?
That's not
That's what we're
fair.
asking.
Don't even go there.
all right, we're proposing to use that same circle concept that we have at Broadway. So the size of the circle can change, the size of the bump outs, the radiuses can all change. But the concept where we would provide that circle to kind of identify the intersection, that was, I think your urban landscape designer did that, originally when we did Broadway, that was a concept to have. It was a design to close off the street and be able to have street fairs and that type of thing. So the bollards you have chains that were removable and the curbs were flush. So the intent was if you did a street fair or some kind of a event, you could take the chains off and open up the whole street to traffic. We're proposed to foot traffic. We're proposing the same concept on Broadway to tie it together with the circle, the concrete circle. There's concern about whether that's confusing for the crosswalks. And what we could do is we could add a crosswalk stripe to square up one side of that circle. So if indeed it's a confusing thing to cross streets. Maybe we could still keep the circle, but put one crossbar. So you have a crosswalk, so you know one limit of your crosswalk. Streetscape amenities, well, so that's really the meat of our discussion is the intersection treatments and the parking spaces. So recognize the parking spaces, we can do angled parking both sides. Go ahead.
So I got a chance to be down there all day Saturday. I got to see what both of these put in there. And I'm just gonna be outright. The bump outs are a horrible idea. They don't work. And so the first thing I realized, and I know you talk about the fire department, I talked to the drivers. I've talked to most of the key drivers at the fire department directly, because they're the ones who have to deal with this. Sarah's great. She doesn't have to deal with it. She's not the driver. She's a fire marshal. So the drivers are the ones you need to talk to, and they all hate it. They said they dealt with them in other cities. They hated them there. And they hate them here. They hate Broadway. They deal with Broadway on the straightaway. They're great. They hate turning on it. It's a problem. It reduces response time. During the turn radius here, they took out all our cones, every single turn. As I mentioned, they had to back up and turn on there. These bump outs, and that's just the fire department. Let's talk about people with trailers who are hauling, as he mentioned, a 21-foot trailer with an additional 30 feet. That's common. This is a very common thing. We are a rural town. This is a major thoroughfare here. We can't treat it like Broadway. And I was on board originally with some of this stuff because I think looking like Broadway is a good idea. But when I saw everything I saw down there, it's not a reality without causing some serious issues for the people who live here. And seeing the responses online, you can see what we have here now. So the whole point is that I think we need to look at what we have here and approach it with a different piece. And for example, like,
I'm sorry, Counselor Lickey, we need to, can Kurt go ahead and get through the rest of the
No,
things
that's
as
great.
well?
This
this is what we're here to
I
discuss.
think that's great. Yeah,
I got
yeah.
a lot of input on here from, I got to see it all firsthand. I really want to get that out because I think it's absolutely critical for everybody to understand that. Paul got to see some of it firsthand too when he was down there for a short period. So some of the things on there that you're talking about is swapping the diagonal parking to the other side of the street, which is in front of the apartments and State Farm in that area. I think it's a great idea because you have a nice long straightaway. You could do a little bit there, but you parallel park the rest of it. So you have those nice wide lanes. So that would be an area that wouldn't impede for turns and everything else. If you eliminate the bump outs, it's taken away an extra driveway from the main part of Main Street by the 76 station. It's not a good idea. You need people to come in and go out there, especially with bigger vehicles. So maybe even turning that into a full enter and exit might be an option. But the person to really talk to is the owner of that place, because that's going to affect his business too.
Right.
We can't forget about that portion. While we want to make things look good, people have businesses. We got to be able to consider that in the process. Yes, there's going to have to be some trade-offs. There's going to have to be some things where he's probably maybe have to give up a little bit of curb space or something. I don't know. And that can be negotiated, but we also we don't want to cause problems for his business. So the other thing that's come up is we realize that you've got to be able to slow people down so you can cross. Some things that come up on there were potential for a stop at 4th and Main, 4-way stop. That's going to help reduce the speed of the traffic because they're going to have to stop. They're not going to go racing down because they have to. And that's going to allow for people to be able to cross more safely because there's a 4-way stop. These are all things that came out of there. Plus, there's a whole slew of things that they've also mentioned in too. And so, but I think the biggest things that came out of there is these bump outs just don't work, not for Main Street. So, all right. That's all I have. Thanks, man.
Let me just say that happy to hear all that. I think your primary discussion needs to be with the council, with the agency, because our role is simply to implement what you conclude you want to do.
And
So we can, if we don't do the bump outs, I mean, in essence, we're just gonna redo the street. You know, that's the other extreme is to just redo. And that's fine. See, the agency is the one that needs to decide what to do and give us direction. I'm open either way. So I understand all those restrictions. The Urban Renewal Agency, that's the city council,
us.
Us, right here.
Yeah. We're working for the Urban Renewal Agency tonight.
Okay. Eddie?
I was just curious if anyone has actually spoken to the owners of the Growler business and seen if they have any opinions on the project as a whole or specifically about the parking as well. Has anyone reached out to them specifically and had any conversations?
No, we have
Staff,
not.
staff did. We had a conversation, we had an interpreter here and had a conversation with Mark Long and his actual request was if we could do you know how there's a kind of patio area over on Broadway. He would love that because people love to sit in front of the growlers and there's just not enough space to really spread out there. So he was open to it, but you know, he has parking off the street. And so that doesn't affect him as much. And because of that, Main Street is different from Broadway in the type of category that street is. I don't know that the patio type effect would actually work, but he did mention that he would enjoy that if we could do that. So other than that, he didn't have much concern.
Okay, that was my biggest question, really. I mean, I have lots that I could say, but we still get director comments at the end of this meeting, right?
You betcha you do.
Then I will leave my comments for then.
We
Thank you.
proposed 10-foot sidewalks on the whole 2-block section. So both sides of the streets have 10-foot sidewalks. And that where you have angled parking, you recognize that a car overhangs the curb by maybe 2 feet. So you effectively have 8-foot sidewalks in that one block. But everywhere you have parallel parking, you have a full 10-foot sidewalk. Broadway was a challenge to match all the business storefronts. And so on Broadway, half of the sidewalk meets all the ADA requirements. The other half was sloped. We haven't done the vertical design yet. We'll have to see what it takes to make the vertical design work. Well, it has to drain. We have 2 constraints. We have to drain the street and we have to match all the existing storefronts. So those 2 things cause us to have to be in a certain location. So we know we want to minimize the slope of the sidewalks. Well, let me walk down the rest of my things just to be thinking about. I think tonight's going to be just introducing these concepts to you again. Think about it, and we probably need to sit down again and talk about the agency's direction and what you'd like to do. Streetscape amenities. I mean, we're getting down into the details, whether we want some spots earmarked for furniture. We had some chalk palettes, as you recall, on Broadway Street. I don't know if anybody ever uses those, but there's some special spots laid out for artists to do chalk work on the sidewalk. We have the stamped concrete there to look like a boardwalk. We had proposed to put trees. We plan to put trees, of course, scattered down the street. There's a lot of existing trees that we have to debate whether we want to save them or not. They're typically not in a good location, typically not going to fit well when we want to try to get the lights in. Lights are, I think, a higher priority than the trees, and the lights are very limited by driveways. So we need to stagger the lights down the street, but we have to be concerned about if there's a driveway where we can't put a light, so we have to push the light one way or the other. And those trees sometimes impact our ability to move the lights where we need to put them. So lights are the highest priority, trees are second. But the tree concept, Broadway, we have all the trees are in raised planters. So at the intersection, you can sit in those planters. We don't have the same space on these intersections to put the raised planters that have seats in them like we did on Broadway. And especially if we raise the radius of those returns. If we do a bump out instead of the 28-foot radius, if we do a 36-foot radius or something that opens those up. And so instead of a 14-foot travel lane, maybe we give a 16-foot or an 18-foot travel lane going around the corners. We don't have enough room for the raised planters. So we're thinking the planters would be on grade. And so one thing to consider would be putting tree grates in. So tree grates, a tree would take up maybe a 4-foot by 4-foot piece of your 10-foot sidewalk. But if we put tree grates, then you can walk over the grade easy enough. So instead of losing 4 feet, you would lose maybe 2.5 feet. So tree grates, they look nice, I think, too. Bollards, we had thought we'd want to use bollards. If we want to try the concept of Broadway to Main Street, we will put some bollards and chains. Those were, I don't know if you recall, they were expensive. We originally had twice as many on Broadway. We cut those back to half the number. I think we ended up spending about $16,000. We had originally $32,000 bid for just the bollards. They put some notable phrases. You know, you had an art committee in the Broadway Street project that came up with some brass letters that went into those circles. So if you want to do something like that, we should start working with the art community to find out if they'd like to do something like that. Street lighting, we're proposing the streetlights would be on grade. They would not be on raised planters. They would be on grade. They would have basket irrigation and flower baskets on each light. So that would be similar to the light fixtures on Broadway. It's just that the base would be flush to the sidewalk. They'd have a, you know, how they have a base to them instead of being in a raised planter. Banner arms is something to think about. One other thing is we're going to be impacted on this job is when PGE has us underground the power, they will make us get rid of the remaining poles on 3rd and 4th between Broadway and Main. So right now, the underground conduit is extended from Broadway part the way towards Main, and then they went back up a pole. But now when we're undergrounding Main Street, they're not going to let us go back and go up the pole. They're going to make us eliminate that pole and do underground to mid-block on 3rd and 4th. But it will mean we'll need to add some lighting on 3rd and 4th streets also where we eliminate the poles. And we plan to underground all the utility power. So we'll be converting any overhead services for communication or power to underground. So that's my list. So,
Okay.
yes.
So on these pictures, where, is it the double circles next to each other that indicate where lights are?
Street lights, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't see any, oh no, now I do.
Yeah, there's trees scattered between the lights. So you should see a tree and a light
Well,
alternating.
I was looking at Third Street.
I don't think we show the light on 3rd Street, but I think on 3rd Street, we're gonna have to eliminate, is it 2 poles, Amy, on 3rd Street? They set a new pole as part of the Broadway project. We'll have to eliminate both poles and put new lights. Now on 4th Street, I know there's a light right now that shines on the Growlers parking lot on a pole that we probably want to take that down and put pedestrian lighting on 4th Street
Well,
also.
one of the biggest concerns that we've had over the last year and a half is that lighting there, before you go up the hill.
The flashing yellow.
No, just lighting
Oh,
period
okay.
in that intersection.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's been a huge issue that I've heard in many committees and on
Okay.
many social media platforms. So just as long as we're addressing lighting in that intersection.
We're proposing 4 lights at each intersection. So all 4 corners. And then I also think we want to eliminate the overhead flashing yellow and put 2 flashing yellows on both sides of Main Street, maybe 50 feet up the hill. So as you're coming down the hill, you'll see the signs with flashing yellow. And we should consider whether we want 3rd and Main to become a 4-way stop or a 3-way stop, or leave it as a 2-way stop.
I just want to check in and see what the intent or what the outcome of this evening is that we're looking for here. And I think it's important to have this listening session, hear what folks have to say. It's been great input so far. But from an agency standpoint, what do we need to produce tonight? And is that a question for you or for Melanie or for Kurt? What are we looking to accomplish tonight in the remaining time that we have?
I think the perception was we get an idea of what we're dealing with, so we could come back with a drawing that works. Before we even take it forward. And like I said, there's a lot more to this whole process than just this meeting right here. This is just the beginning. This is just to give them an idea. They're seeing in the room what you're saying. They understand. We understand. But we've got to go through the process. This is the process. Now, you made a comment that the city doesn't care. They're going to do whatever they want to do. That's not the truth. That's not the truth, because I was put here because the people want change. They asked me. They said, hey, run for office for change. That's what we're trying to do. So we're on your side, but we've got to go through the process. Everybody's got to go through the process. I'm on your side, the people.
There's a difference between the long-time residents of this city, this town, and the increase in population that we have that's bringing on more traffic. Why don't we spend the money and address those issues, the traffic situation, making sure that our sidewalks have ramps for disabled? There's a lot of ways that we can spend our money, I think, a lot better than coming up with stuff. Why do you work with it, and why are we doing it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I think,
Look at the video.
excuse-
Look at the condition of our roads around here.
I've seen the video. I've been out there. I was out there the day we did the study. Yeah,
so here is,
okay.
here's what we need to do. Maybe the first thing, we need to give Kurt some feedback so he can do some revisions on these designs. Are we leaning towards all any diagonal parking or like, should we go with some diagonal parking or no diagonal parking? I think that's one of the first questions.
Is the,
Um, mhm. Excuse me, we need to to have the board. give
is that,
feedback.
is that jumping the gun though? Because I think the Public Safety Committee is going to make a presentation and some recommendations to city council as well too. So do we
Yeah,
need
we're
to
ahead of
have
the
that
game.
meeting?
They're coming
We
back
could,
to
I mean,
us.
we could wait. I was hoping to get, my plan was to get Kurt some
I think
feedback.
we're
today, but-
absorbing all of this,
Yeah.
so we'll be able to
That's good. I'm
address
gonna go
all of
into
this.
So I think we're hearing like, we need parking, but we need freely moving traffic. But we also need pedestrian safety, including lighting or however we would do that. We might need additional stop signs. That's probably a traffic engineering thing. And those are the kind of things that we're hearing. We want everybody to feel welcome. We don't want people driving downtown with their kids in the back of the back seat of their pickup truck hauling their horses and then feel like they don't belong because they can't get into the downtown to run in the grocery store before they head out on the trail. We want, I think that's the kind of thing that, so we have these competing priorities of pedestrian safety, making it pretty, but also making sure traffic flows through here. Traffic can make the corners. And so it's going to come down to you guys having to make some decisions, which was made on Broadway for a different purpose than what's happening out here for the most part. But
Let me add that on Broadway also, there's 12-foot sidewalks. So it's actually 4 feet narrower than this street. So, and we have diagonal parking on both sides. So very restrictive. That's
Mhm.
very restrictive.
it is
But
very
it's
restrictive.
4 feet narrower and diagonal parking on both sides. Now here we're talking about sidewalks that are 2 feet shorter on each side
Mhm.
with diagonal parking on one side. If we do that, we can parallel park. We lose about 5 parking spaces if we parallel park. But we could put diagonal parking and still have much larger lanes than what we have
So
on Broadway.
I knew that this meeting should have been an hour and a half, but we needed to get it in. So I put it in 45 minutes. But does each board member want to make like a high priority comment? And then we can hear just a couple minutes from each person that wanted to speak.
We'll go with Joe first, then Jerry.
Oh, so just high priority comment.
High priority come.
Get rid of the bump outs.
Good. So this is just information. This is just for
Yes.
to help my brain work. Can the bump outs be eliminated on the side streets and shortened on
Certainly.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm at the point where I agree with Counselor Litke, get rid of the bump outs, but I mean, that was just one thing. Can they be eliminated on the side streets and then reduced on the, on Main?
Yes, I think the side streets have minimal impact on parking. If you notice, I think there's large yellow, no parking on the side streets. And what we did on the side streets is tried to have a little landscape island because we're using the lights at the intersection or putting the trees a little further back, just like Broadway has. Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Well,
Oh,
Charity?
no, I wanted to mention, agree. I'm not down with the bump outs, but angled parking, I think is going to be an issue, especially coming down that hill. Because when people back out, you're going to have people flying down that hill and they're going to back out. So it's already an issue
Right.
on Broadway. And I know that's more of a pedestrian thoroughfare, but I'm just thinking of people coming down that hill and then people trying to back out of that angled parking.
So you favor parallel parking there
Yes.
or a stop sign
Or,
coming down the hill?
yeah, so we'll either have to look at four-way stops or get rid of that angled parking, because I think that's gonna be a hazard.
Four-way stop certainly addresses traffic, but it's difficult. You're coming down the hill
Yes.
to hit a four-way stop at the bottom of that 12% grade or whatever it is. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
All right.
Are we looking for, mine would be, what we can do to increase the parking right now, especially on Main Street between Third and Fourth. Many times throughout the day, every spot is taken there now. So whatever we can do to increase that at all would be good.
And that would be if we could negotiate eliminating some driveways. So if we could meet with each property owner and reconfigure their driveways. Ace Hardware, for example, has 2 driveways that perhaps we could get by with one larger driveway and eliminate their southern driveway if we can make that work for them. That would open up maybe another 3 or 4 parking spaces right there. If we went to diagonal parking, we could get the same as we have on the west side, on the east side. The driveways are the whole conflict with parking. So we just have a lot of driveway. Broadway didn't have very few driveways on Broadway. But this is driveways everywhere.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Kurt. I don't see any more questions to Kurt. Go ahead if you want to.
Honestly, I'm really confused about how this meeting went because it does seem like the Main Street project went from being more pedestrian safety, more pedestrian friendly. How do we get our downtown more foot traffic friendly, more vibrant, have people really spending more time walking between Main and Broadway and visiting all the businesses and really revitalizing our downtown. And now it seems like the priority changed over to, well, to traffic. So I guess I'm really confused, and good news is this is my last meeting and I don't have to
news
continue
for
being a
you.
part of this conversation moving forward. So I guess my parting words to this discussion, I really want it to be that I'm raising my kids in the Lakeshore neighborhood. I'm downtown. I'd like to be able to come and visit a vibrant downtown and feel safe on Main and not feel like I'm going to be hit by a car if I walk from Yo Treats to Sol Tapatio. And it would be really nice to someday have that peace of mind when my kids are old enough to walk from my house to their dad's house. And, you know, it's literally right there on Main. And so in the next couple of years, it'd really be nice to see some more pedestrian safety. I'm really confused as to how this project went from being about the pedestrians to being about the traffic. But good news is I don't have to make those hard decisions. So good luck to all of you guys.
I think the only reason it's traffic is that's really what we heard. All we heard tonight was traffic, but our job is to balance pedestrian safety and maneuverability with traffic. So we'll go see what we can do with the bump outs and clear spaces to try to get some larger turn lanes and that type of stuff. But it has to be a balance of both. We didn't have the pedestrian support group here tonight. to talk about it. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your time and coming out and speaking on behalf of the traffic and the roadways and all these wonderful things. And I'm sorry it was kind of abrupt. We
Yeah, no.
do usually have time for all these comments, but this was kind of pushed into 1 hour, which was too short a time for this kind of project to even be discussed, in my opinion. But that said, it's done
Okay.
and
Good for us to understand. We certainly understand these comments. And so we'll go back and work on it and come up with something that addresses everything we've heard.
all right. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, the first one on citizen and community group comment that I have is Linda Parsons.
And we'll try to, usually we limit comments to 3 minutes, but if you can even limit it a little more, that'd be great. So we can hear from everybody and almost stay on time.
Okay, my name is Linda Parsons. I live here in Estacada and I own a business in Estacada, the Country Restaurant and Lounge on Main Street. And my concern has been, as you've already discussed, the whole traffic thing with not being able to drive or park on Broadway with the cars out. So I feel like that's not a good idea on Main Street. This is our main thoroughfare. And the comment about, well, they could find another way to go doesn't really make any sense because there is no other way to go. You either going to come up Broadway, you're going to come up Main, you can come up River Mill and then go where, you know, the part about the bike lanes. Do we really expect that much bike traffic on Main Street? You know, they can, I don't know where you think they're all going to go, that you're going to have all of these bicycles. As far, whoa, please, I'm talking. As far as safety and pedestrians, there's such a thing as a street light with a walkway. Lots of places have lines on the street with a stop sign, and you walk when it says walk and you stop when it says stop. And that's, a town can have that. Our town can have that. People are moving out to Estacada from the city because they don't want the city. They want the country. And our country people have trucks and campers and our businesses have deliveries that need to be made. I guess, the bump outs are pretty, but you've got pretty. Now we have a place where people can actually travel. Let them travel here. As far as parking, why can't we, I don't know whether that parking lot over there across from the fire station, I don't know who gets to use that. Could that be a public parking? When you go to Gresham, they have different areas that have public parking, free public parking, where people can park and walk to their shops. Could we possibly do that at some of the different places? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Wally Kanza.
My name's Wally. I'm a longtime resident of Estacada.
Step up to the mic there.
Again, my name is Wally. I'm a longtime resident of Estacada. I'm really disappointed with this proposal when I think that we could spend the money more wisely on a lot of other issues that we have out there in the town. I'm a country guy. I don't live in the city limits, but yet I think I should have a voice in what happens down here. I have a horse trailer. I have a dump trailer. I have a 30-foot RV. I have a pickup truck. It's a bitch trying to go down here through Broadway. And you want to sit there and do the same thing over here on Main Street? Why do we have the traffic? Can I ask the question? What is the reason for this? What's the reason for the proposal? Can anybody tell me what the reason is? I hear safety. I hear traffic. I'll tell you about traffic. Because of the damn Faraday Heights over there, the traffic on my road has increased probably 50 to 60% during rush hour because they're using my road as their drag strip. And they're coming down here. Traffic's just going to get worse because you've got all these homes that are being built and you're not taking into consideration the traffic.
Thank you all. Okay, Matthew.
Hello, my name is Matthew, longtime citizen of Estacada. I don't really have much to say that wasn't already said, but there does seem to be like this grand invisible magnet that pulls this thing, and we call it progress. But I think sometimes you got to be a little careful about what you're going to let it pull, what you're going to let it pull out of whack, what you're going to let it pull this way. You need to be careful. We have this road right here. You did your thing. It's beautiful. I mean, if that's what's beautiful to you, I guess. This road is used by people. Doesn't matter if it's beautiful. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It's useful. The word beautification, it kind of makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because where I live on Shafford was beautified. And what you did is you took out several hundred trees and you put in several hundred tons of concrete. And I don't know, I know Jerry drives down that road, Shafford. How many times you have to stop in between parked cars to let other cars go by you so you can continue driving down a road that was completely fine before? It was completely fine.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, William Brown.
Hi there, my name is William Brown. I've been here for 25 years, but I don't have a voice in this city council because I do not live inside the city limits. That's not fair. And what you guys do down here affects everyone in the city and around the city. Estacada is a dual purpose town. We have party in the front, business in the back. So when you want to go and walk with your family and show off Estacada, you go down Broadway. You don't go down Broadway to get anywhere because you can't. You go down Main because Main is the main street for a reason. It goes through town. There's no speeding here because we have a whopping speed limit maximum of 25. The entire city, except for the highway, which is state owned, is 25. So if you can't teach your children to use a crosswalk and stay out of the road, then you should probably find somewhere else to live. Now, the bottom of the hill here is a dangerous spot for a four-way stop. It's bad enough when the TriMet stops there and people come over the hill at 25 and they got to slow down hauling a load behind that bus. Now, if you want to make safety cross over there, Portland, they have these fancy little yellow things. You hit the button, the flashing lights come on, everybody has to stop. It's not a stop all the time. It's only a stop when someone needs to cross. They're very easy to use and they're very user-friendly. I just came from Portland. I grew up down there. I just had a drive in there today. I drove down Holgate, which used to be four-way and is now two-way with giant bike lanes and is ruined. It's backed up from one light to the next, all the way from 92nd to 136th. You go down Division. Division has these big old bump outs. You can't turn unless there's no one coming in either of the two lanes. We don't have 4 lanes here. We only have 1 lane each way. So you can put bump outs there to make it even worse. Evidently, I think I'm up to my time. Anyway, don't like any of it. The lights, safety crossing, parking, go for it. Leave the bump outs out.
Okay, so far.
Yeah. Another thing, everybody else has already like spoke their, opinions and stuff, and I do agree with them. I take public transportations, and the fact that like I have to stand out in the street to see the bus and wave and letting them know when the cars are parked like right there and blocking the TriMet stop, that's gonna be an issue for me. But however, like, having traffic and having any other like big trucks like going through at angle parking, no. Not a good idea. Or that daggum, whatever you call it. And the bump outs, not a good idea. And the whole beautification thing, not a good idea. Just do the basics. Leave the basics. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all the questionnaires I have, and I thank you all for your comments. You got 1 online, 2 online? Okay. Wait a minute. Terry, are you there? Are they on?
Can you unmute Terry? Nope.
Am I there?
Yeah, you're here.
Yep, Mike.
Go ahead,
Hey.
Mike.
Yeah. Hey, I was hoping to be down there, but I'm sick. I don't want to share my flu with everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. When we were there Saturday setting out cones, I really got a chance to really see the traffic flow on Broadway and compared to the traffic flow on Main. And I was actually very surprised that, probably I want to say about 75% of the traffic was on Main compared to Broadway. That's just what I noticed. We really use that road as a main thoroughfare. Matter of fact, when I come through town, I almost never go through Broadway just because I got a large van and I don't want to hit the rear ends of trucks and stuff that are on Broadway. I use Main quite a bit. And the other thing is a stop sign at the base of the hill. That might not be a good idea. I think it was Bill that was talking about that, because if people do have a load coming down the hill, that would be kind of rough to try to stop. If there's going to be a stop sign, 4-way stop sign, probably, I think it would be 4th and Main would be a good place to put that. Just my opinion. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, and Terry, we still can't hear you. Are you able to unmute? We can't unmute for you.
Press the
No.
space bar.
Oh, press the space bar and see if that unmutes you on your keyboard.
If you're on a phone, it's *6.
I don't think she's on a phone. No. If you can press the space bar, otherwise, feel free to email in your comment. So we would love to hear from you. Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
well, moving right along, we are at board and member comments. So would anybody like to comment on this? We'll start off with Katie Lauren.
I just wanted to thank everyone for the last 4 years here at this board. I do want to mention, as it relates to this conversation tonight, I spent some time in Silverton today, actually. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, I've spent a lot of time, seems like all around the United States. It's been amazing. I've been traveling a lot and I see a lot of different little towns. I get everyone's concerns about Main Street being a major thoroughfare and having a lot of horse trailers. I know my mom hauls her horse trailer down there a lot too. But we always make do wherever we are with our horse trailers or our fire trucks or our semi trailers and our recycling trucks. They seem to do really good in areas like Silverton, where you've got even, shorter road widths, and it's beautiful, and they've got a vibrant downtown. And even at 1 o'clock on a Monday, there were people downtown shopping. It'd be my dream to see Estacada have a vibrant downtown again. I miss the days of my teenagehood when it seemed like every given weekend, no matter rain or shine, there was always people downtown visiting the businesses, shopping at Mossy Rock. It would be really cool to see that again someday. And I just wish you all on the Urban Renewal Agency board the best of luck. I get how confusing politics can be for some people in understanding where certain money is spent and where certain money comes from and what certain money is earmarked for and when that earmark actually happened. I've been talking about Main Street since before I was elected in 2018, and I'm going to leave my 4-year term having actually done nothing as it relates to Main Street. And yet I spent the last 4 years talking about it. So things happen slowly. My best suggestion for everybody here is I'm glad that you care. Show up, make the comments. This is by far the most people in this room that I have seen in the last 3 years. And that's good. That's a good thing, because I honestly was about to leave my term disappointed at the apathy of the general masses of our city. So to see people who actually care show up is really good. So good luck to all of you. Good luck to the city, and thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Jerry.
So first off, I want to thank the Traffic and Public Safety Committee for what they did Saturday. I apologize that I couldn't be there. I do work every Saturday, but I appreciate what you guys did and what you showed us, because these drawings are beautiful. These drawings are absolutely beautiful, but what they don't show us is functionality. And you guys showed us functionality, and there's a lot of stuff that is definitely going to need to be revisited. A lot of stuff that was proposed here just isn't going to work for our main thoroughfare going through downtown Estacada. I really appreciate the work that you did, and it was really eye-opening. And like I said, this drawing's beautiful, but it doesn't show us functionality, and you guys showed us functionality. So thank you.
I just want to thank the Public Safety Committee as well. I was out there on Friday for a bit. You guys did a lot of work. That was very impressive. Just to see what you all tackled on over there. So appreciate that. And then appreciate the folks that came tonight for public input too. The city council is seeking public input still for the transportation system plan as well too. So there are lots of avenues and time to get input on things that the city is doing. And we've had public open houses as well too. We've had those here in this room. We look forward to more participation with that stuff. We can go online, I believe, for the transportation system plan and give your input on that. So we're seeking input on things like bigger issues of transportation affecting our city as well too. So, but thanks for coming out tonight.
Mike.
Appreciate what the committee did for putting on the putting all the work in out there. I had a chance to drive through there several times and I was surprised by how tight everything was down there. And I didn't have a trailer on my truck just coming through. My truck was tough enough making some of the turns. I think that I'm looking forward to finding a balance between the functionality and still addressing the pedestrian concerns. I appreciate the public for some of their recommendations on how we can accomplish that. And I think that by the time the project's in its final design, everyone will be a lot happier with it. And I'm looking forward to balancing those things out and working on the project.
Charity.
Just to echo, thanks the Public Safety Committee for taking the time on Saturday and putting all that work into it. I got to drive through. 4th and Main has always been an issue for me. It is still an issue for me. So I'm really excited to kind of remedy that situation. We hear all of your comments. I would encourage you to continue to email in or look for other opportunities to voice your opinion as we continue this process for Main Street. And I agree with my counselor here. I'm looking for trying to, make it functional. We want it to be functional for all of our trucks and trailers, obviously, but we also want to address some safety concerns. So I very much like, adding more lighting, things like that. We had mentioned doing the yellow lights for the cross. We've talked about that in previous meetings. So those things have been addressed, and we'll definitely be revisiting this, but I appreciate everyone coming out and voicing their concerns and their opinions.
Joel.
I'll try to make this quick, so I know we're over schedule. Real quick, first of all, I did have an email sent to me. I want to make quick mention of a 40-year street engineer from the U.S. Air Force and working roadways and things. Wrote an email in. His key things were bump outs are completely impractical. And that was, by the way, that's John Nieder is his name. Angled parking is basically an issue there, as mentioned before. Intersection circles are also issues as he identifies, and I'll make sure this gets forwarded to Melanie to put to the rest of the council. And if it hasn't gone to everybody yet. Utilities, getting them underground. And then the last thing was for them to put a light out there at the 224. So thank you everybody for coming out. I really appreciate you guys. This is not the only thing that the city's doing. So please come out to more stuff, ask questions, stick around for council meetings, look on a city website, see what's going on, and come out and share your opinion, because we don't know what we don't know until you guys let us know what we don't know, or something like that. But basically, the whole point is that we need your input. We can go out, we can talk to you guys on the streets, we can put it out, we can see things online. But what really matters is when you guys come up and you guys get to that microphone there, and you guys give us your straight, honest opinion of what you guys want. And that's what's really going to have the most impact. We're here to represent you. We are supposed to be your voice up here, but if we're not hearing your voice, it's hard to represent that sometimes. So please come get involved. Let us know what it is you guys want and don't want, and then we'll do our best to try to make sure that we implement that. Thanks you guys so much, and hopefully see you guys in future meetings.
Go ahead. You clap for him, man. You did good. I'm going to leave you with one comment, because I heard a lot of it tonight is negativity. I'm hearing what we're not doing. It seems that everybody in the city thinks that the city stopped listening. If anything, we've started. We see the growth. I see the growth every day. I drive it. I drive Shafford. I drive all those with my truck. And I hit in those bulb outs and they're a pain. I get it. Trust me, I get it. And we're going to compromise. We're going to make sure that this works for everybody. This is not set in stone. And it's not going to happen without you being a part of the process. I will not have that happen. That's why I'm here. But I want everybody to understand that going forward, we are not trying to shaft you, where you wake up tomorrow and your whole city's different and you don't have a choice. That's not what we're doing here. That's why you're all here. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to put it out there. We want to take the time to make the right choices. And that's all I really have to say. So thank you. This meeting is adjourned.